I'd like to introduce Sherann Hillman, excuse me. She's the Head of Family Services at the Seashell Trust, co-chair of Stockport Parent Forum and Northwest National Representative for the National Network of Parent Carer Forums. Sherann was significantly involved in the Children and Families Act 2014 and all of the relevant legislation. She's a parent carer of 3 young people with SEND, I take my hat off to you, and is passionate about ensuring that children, young people and their families are at the heart of all services and legislation. She's constantly advocating for the involvement of children, young people and parent carers in the design, development, review and delivery of services. This is going to be part of our closing down of the conference today, and it will be followed by a closing speech by Susan. Sherann, it's over to you.
Hi, looks like you've had a fabulous day. I've been listening in and I'm really looking forward to hopefully helping everyone. So I'll tell you a bit about my story because obviously going back, I've been a volunteer now with children, young people and families in the Stockport area for 23 years. I've only been working at Seashell Trust for almost 6 years now. But I think it's important when I was asked to do motivational speeches, really about a story about a parent really and what changes you can make, but also at the end knowing that at any time you can contact me, whether it by call or Twitter or Facebook or however you want, where I can help you, because I was so involved with the Children and Families Act and the Code of Practice. I know it really well, but I know it from a family's point of view as well as a professional's point of view, because I represented families. So yeah, I'm a parent of 3 children. They're now, well, they're not children anymore, they're adults. So I've got one that's almost 25, one that's 22 and one that's 20, that all have significant difficulties ranging from autism, ADHD, anxiety disorders, mental health, gosh, you name it, they've got it, and also a husband as well. So my journey started many years ago when I was trying to get support for my children. And it was very difficult, as we all know. You fight in a system, and when you haven't got a statement or what's now an education, health and care plan, it was very difficult. And the fight for families, and you'll always fight for your children no matter what, for the support that they need. And I'd got so drained with such numerous problems with my children, with particularly all 3, as I started to identify that there was something wrong with them. And I'd also just lost my nephew with a terminal illness that was very rare, and just seeing how families had to really try and get the support they needed was really difficult. And I'd come to the end of my tether, trying to get support and banging my head against the wall with local authorities, trying to get what I needed, until it made me that poorly I couldn't get out of bed. And then just one day, a few days later, my mental health was awful, and I just got out of bed and I thought, I've got 3 beautiful children here, do you know what, I'm going to change this. And I did, and I got out that bed and I thought, I keep fighting the system, I'm not, but I'm going to help change services. And it was only because I walked into a room locally that they started, what the Department of Education was looking at was parental involvement and the voice of parents being shaped in services. And it was a programme that had come through short breaks, aiming high, where it was setting up a forum. So I decided, they asked me would I, because I'd been a treasurer at a local preschool, so I thought I will do that. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And I started a parent carer forum locally. Obviously there's up to 152 now in England, and started to help shape services in Stockport to better meet the needs of families. Because if the voice of parents is in there, we know what our families, what our children need, and the experience of professionals and parents together, it just all works much better and meets the needs. So that's what I did basically. I've worked solidly for years voluntary, and then a few years later I then became the Northwest rep, so I represented 93 parent carer forums, and then on to 152 in England that I became the co-chair of the national network. So the involvement I had in the Children and Families Act was just around the whole code. So I also got an amendment to the Act around the right for parent carers 0 to 18 to have the support, so an assessment to support, which isn't really well known out there still. I don't know why, but it's not something that people advocate for. So any parent with a 0 to 18 through the Children and Families Act has the right to ask for an assessment for support of their needs. And then also we got mental health in that as well. So I was one of the 70 that wrote the helped write the Children and Families Act Code of Practice, which I don't know if many of you know all about that. But you know, if there's any help anybody needs, that was the part that I helped write, was the views, the principles of the code, which is the views, the wishes, and parents being involved in the decision making of all services, and basically that what they call co-production. I know it seems a fancy word, but co-production is basically being involved from the beginning right the way through to the end. And it's been a hell of a journey, I'll say that. Over the 12 years we managed to get parents' voice very strongly. You know, there's a huge amount of families involved in trying to advocate to get in law that to make sure that families were a massive part of the choices that were made. So it's obviously came out in 2014, the Act, and I think it's there's still a lot to go on that, and we were hoping before the virus came that there would be some amendments to make it a little bit stronger. And so you know, I'd be interested to know as well and help people out if you know, if they've got education, health and care plans, if people need to understand a little bit more about them and the reason why we've got education, health and care plans. I can also sort of give you an idea how things came about in legislation, completely around the code, so including that preparing for adulthood. You know, we need to prepare early for our children, not get that cliff edge at 16 that we used to see, or 18, or again not move to 25. So it's that holistic view, and so I advocate really hard to make sure that families do, and you'll see that in all local areas, some local areas are actually in trouble because they're not working with families, and that's been picked up through Ofsted and CQC, particularly over the last few years, because everybody seems to think it's such a massive thing to listen to families and everybody involved and co-produce because of time and capacity, but it's a way of working, and I just think it's so important that our voices are heard. And it's the same as professionals. Everybody involved around the child and young person should really have their say and help shape that services. So the bit that I sort of did was around making sure there was individual involvement of the voice of children and young people, but also and parent carers, obviously, and that could be anybody from foster carers, you know, whoever cares for that person, and also making sure that there was strategic involvement. So that means that whatever happens in a child and young person's life, they should be involved from the beginning right the way through to the end. So making sure that if they've got an education, health and care plan, it's not just about that section at the beginning where it's talking about the views, it's about every part of that section should be co-produced with families. And also strategically, you know, whether it's a school, particularly schools, your policies, anything that happens in services in schools, anything that anybody provides should have that parental voice in there. And I know, you know, continually every day, families are really, really struggling to get the support they need. And in some seem to manage to get and have a really great journey. But others don't seem to. They have to really fight for what they need. And that shouldn't be what the case is. The Children and Families Act was supposed to be making a difference after many years, is so that families wouldn't have to fight. But of course, that's not what's happened, is it? So really what I want to say was, you know what, anything's possible. For me, being a parent, you know, many years ago, still am now, fighting hard with my children to still get the support they need now, is that it's, you know, I wouldn't have thought I would ever be going up into ministers and into Parliament to fight for families' rights. That day that I was sat there, lay in bed, thinking that I didn't know how to cope anymore. So it's, what I would say is that you wouldn't want to go that far, I don't think, because it's hard work. And I don't think I barely sleep. People laugh because they say, do you ever sleep at night? But I think it's passion, isn't it? And, you know, we do anything for our children and young people, whether you're a professional or not. I'm now the head of family services. If anybody's heard the Seashell Trust, is the most for children and young people with very severe and complex needs. We've got 40 different local authority children with many different, autism to Charge syndrome to Prader-Willi. We've got all sorts of different children within our trust. So I oversee the family services, because what I wanted to do was, it's like a flagship, was how could we support families? So I do a lot of events across the country, and even as far as Australia. So I never charge a family. I managed to get fundraising in to put different things on, because it's so complex, isn't it? We never know from day to day what we need, what information, because it's only relevant to what it is. And I think information and signposting to even the right, you go on the internet, don't you, and you find so much things. It's just crazy. And then you put a thing in, shall I look for this? And then you might get 200 different, and what do you believe, what do you own? And I know lots of families like myself, we go on Facebook groups and we get support. But I suppose it's about timely information, isn't it? And getting the right support at the right time. And our journey doesn't end, does it? And as we get older, and we get older, we tend to worry about, well, how we're going to support, what we're going to do. So our worries never go, they just change, don't they? And I think with my three, you know, is when they're little, you're going through that system, and then when they become into adulthood, you think, well, how do we do that now? So it's great to have parent-to-parent support, I think, as well. And you know, some of you will probably realise the same as me, is when you do have a child with disabilities, your life seems to change, doesn't it? Because when you're in that playground, nobody really wants to be with you, and then you end up with all your friends and other parents with children with special needs. So it's a journey, isn't it? And it's not always a great journey. It can be a really, really difficult journey. But I want you to know is, do you know what? Anything's possible. We shouldn't have to fight for things. We should be able to, you know, ask and get the right information that we need. So that's why I've sort of dedicated my life, not wanting other people to go through the things that I've been through, and to try and get into law, the rights of parents. So we're in there now, but also it's how do we work with professionals, and seeing them as equal partners is really important, because relationships with the people that support or our children and young people, or whether it be in a hospital, a school, OT, physio, whatever that may be, dietitians. Our relationship is really important, to have a good relationship and be able to work together. So I was just wondering if anybody sort of had any questions or anything they want I could help them with, really, around what they're dealing with at the moment. I mean, I know COVID has been quite difficult because of some children have been in school, some haven't. I'm not sure whether some of you still, I know some families still haven't got their children back in school at the moment and are quite worried about them being in school, particularly in this national lockdown, and how does it affect their rights, and some, you know, the support they need. So if there's anything I can do, obviously today or whenever, you can get in contact with me. Or you just don't even understand the legislation, because not everybody wants to read or should have to. A parent shouldn't have to know the law, because it should be just right, really. And professionals and everybody around should be able to support you to know that. So I think, I don't know whether some of you are still on special needs, SEN support, because that's really important. What used to be School Action Plus, and the plans. So it's, as I say, it's a crazy kind of year, isn't it? And it's a very difficult, I think, for everybody's well-being, is managing our children at home. You know, having to try and do some kind of education with them, and the most important thing is caring, isn't it, for them? But also, how do we keep, as a parent carer, our mental health and well-being, and still making sure that we're getting the right support, because everything's a little different with Zooms. I know some families are struggling around accessibility, and not being able to do the Zoom calls, or tired of doing things like this. So it's not particularly conferences, but actually all their appointments find it difficult. So it's a new world for us, isn't it? And I don't think it's changing soon, but there is lots of positives that I think have come about it. Particularly families that, you know, should be getting welfare checks every week. So I think, yeah, I don't know if there's anybody wants to ask me sort of any questions around anything really to do with, I can cover most things at the moment, so I didn't know whether anybody wanted to ask me anything.
Hi, Sherann. We have a question which says, I'm a single parent, and after an assessment, I was refused a social worker as I was told my child's needs are being met. Of course they are, as I'm doing all I can to meet her needs. How can I appeal this?
Well, I think, I don't think they should be refused a social worker, because obviously if you know, as a parent, you don't feel that you are, your needs aren't being met, then they should listen, because for me that's really not listening to the parent, and I'm quite happy to support around that. But again, it's, you know, it's everybody's perception is, and I think it happens to a lot of us, and I've been there myself, is where we do such a damn good job, don't we, that we're expected, and the more we do a good job, the more we're expected to carry on doing it, and that's a difficult thing. But then what happens? We become burnt out, don't we? And then you won't be able to care anymore. So I would appeal it, and I'd get back in touch, and I would just say to them, and I'd put it in writing, and it's really important for parents to have that email trail or track, and then they can say is, but I might be okay, but as I'm seeing with the 100 odd families I'm working with continually daily at the trust, is that everybody might seem to be coping from somebody else's view, but that's because we've got no choice, is it? And because what else are we going to do if there's no one there? And it's really hard when you're single to do that. And I don't know if people are aware, but 94% of families with disabled children are single, which is a massive high amount. And we just can't keep going. So I think it's really important for social care to listen to you before it does hit a crisis, because it's that early intervention. And I think with anything is, the earlier anybody gets involved, is we stop that hitting into a crisis. So that is what I'd be saying, was I'm telling you now that I need support and I need a social worker before I hit crisis. Hello, can anybody hear me? Because I can carry on.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the PWSA has some.
Yeah, I can carry on.
Yeah.
So if everybody can hear me.
Would you like me to read out the questions?
Yeah.
Let me just. So another question is, I'm struggling to get a bed for my daughter. I can't leave her to wander around in the middle of the night. They want to give me strategies to help with her behavior. I feel this is not the way. She's non-verbal and awake half the night. She's 8 and still in a cot bed.
Right, so we need to get, I'm just looking at the chat myself. Just hang on.
I think this question is about actually buying.
I'll go back to the, I'm struggling to get a bed yet. So I think it's around that one is, well, really, the services need to help provide the right bed, don't they? Because, you know, I know it's difficult in a cot bed, but she's 8, so we need the right kind of bed for her. And you know, Pamela, I can get hold of you separately to speak about that. But I understand around them wanting to do strategies and around behaviour, but I think that's more around trying to get her to settle. But I think if the bed is not right, it's the same with any child. If the environment or whatever it is not right, we need to look at that. So that's something that I've got some specialist people at Seashell Trust that do this, because obviously we're all non-verbal or with little communication there. So I'll give you my details to get in touch, and I can get somebody to help you with that. The next one is around services. So how do we know services might be entitled, what you might be entitled to, you don't know yet, could help us but aren't advertised? Is there a list somewhere? So generally on your local authority, there should be what they called a local offer. So on the local offer, it was part of the Children and Families Act Code of Practice, where every local authority has a duty to provide information for all families. So if you type in your local area and local offer, it should be a list of services with everything you need for your child or young person 0 to 25. I mean, they vary. And they're supposed to be accurate and up to date, and it should list everything from schools to even hairdressers. But again, I mean, your biggest, I would say the biggest service for a family, which you do need is free, is the information, advice and support service in every area. They're called Sendias. And they're really, really good. So they're there to help you in school, help you write letters, and that changed when the Act came in. So that it covers education, health and care, but also when your child becomes 16, the young person has the right to support. So local authorities have a duty to provide that for free. So that's a really good one. But that local offer is really good. I mean, I can always get links sent out to you around that, because it's only irrelevant, isn't it, as we say, to when you need it. You might need not something one day, but you might need the next. So there's also lots of things, advice, you know, from different areas on your CCG, on your health services, as well as your local authority. And most tend to have social media as well now, because some people prefer to go on social media than websites. But yeah, every local area will have a parent carer forum as well that can help you. And you might want to get involved with them or just ask them to help you. So particularly around, you know, struggling around the bed, that's another thing with the local parent carer forum. So if you go on the national network of parent carer forums, you'll see a list of how to get in touch with yours. So I'll have a look. What else have we got? So you've constantly been refused support as the daughter, as obviously your daughter's doing well. So again, it's really around a central list of support services. So again, it's with the, I suppose with the support, again, is still on that local offer. And there's some really good advice as well. If I don't know if you've heard, I use him quite a lot, is Steve Broach. He's the top barrister in England for, there's not much, whether it be transport issues down to, you know, rights, human rights, things like that. So he's really good on Twitter and he has loads of blogs, and you can use some of his work to support you as well. So what help can social services help? I think there's lots now. I mean, social services seems to have changed a lot over the years and many have become integrated services. So they should be able to help you. I know lots of areas are currently looking at a key working kind of a function. So it'll be able to help you, they will support you with education as well. So it might be around respite. You might need some respite, short breaks. And I think as families many years ago and still now, we always get worried about social care if they get involved, and you know, periodically around safeguarding. So I meet lots of families that worry about social care, but it's really great to be involved with some social workers now, particularly around disability. They can help you get some short breaks, whether that's in, you know, daily, whether it's a few hours or overnight respite, or help you get support so that, you know, it's important to have that social care input as well in your education, health and care plan. Your emotional, it's about the whole family really. So social care will look at that holistic, what support needs to be brought in, and what other services do they need to help bring in as well, because that's supposed, well, it is more of the role of a social care worker now, is that family support. So sports clubs for disabled children is very different in lots of areas. So we at Seashell Trust do, and we're looking at going further apart. So we have what we called abled and disabled sports, and we have disability football now that we've gone into, and it's been so successful the way we've run it, and we were hoping to run it further across, but it's so important. I mean, my daughter is a professional footballer, even though she's got autism, and they chose to go look around her abilities rather than her disabilities. So she's paid for, you know, Liverpool, Chelsea, and a lot, because that was her unusual interest, and we couldn't do anything else with her. But I think it's got better and better. Sports clubs, and if you look at the football clubs particularly, they don't look at disabilities the same. They look at people's abilities, and all the well-known clubs are absolutely fantastic. So there's also lots of different wheelchair kind of dance groups now that are happening that I'm seeing, and just in the air, just lots of local areas. And I think in particularly the focus with particularly with having the COVID and the pandemic now and being more outside. I know a lot of our local areas are looking at about that. So you'd be able to again find those locally on your local offer, or find sort of places like us at Seashell Trust that know wider, and you'd be able to speak to our sports team who would know wider across the country about what's happening like us.
Yeah. Come onto the camera. Keep that up.
Seems to have.
Hi, Sherann. I'm really sorry we lost connection. We got thrown out of our own meeting here. Are you?
Yeah, don't worry. We carried on. We carried on.
I'm very glad you did. Thank you very much.
I used to doing conferences.
Oh dear.
So yeah, no, we've just been trying to answer the questions. So particularly around what people's support there is. And I think the biggest thing out of all is the local offer. And some of the questions I can do after this, like I said, is people can have my details, and anybody puts in Sherann Hillman MBE anywhere, you'll just come up with my Twitter, but can have conversations with as many people as they want and help them with the support they need. And also I can work with Prader-Willi and then see, because I do have funding to put on different sessions for them. I can do lots of webinars for different areas. I do put law webinars and things on like that, so with different speakers. So I can work closely with yourselves to help families from now on.
Thank you very much indeed. We really, really appreciate that. And thank you so much for coming on. I'm sorry about the disruption. This is the first time we've done a virtual conference. And do you know what? Doing the conference hasn't been difficult. Keeping connected to the internet has been the hardest thing of all.
Yeah, and
Sherann,
do you know what? I think it's fantastic, and I think for families, and I'm sure everybody on here, as well as professionals that are on here, is that, do you know what, we need more of these, because we all need help. It doesn't matter who we are, whether we're parent or professional or me, both roles, is that we need help all the time, and organisations like this and people like all of this on here are just so important to everyone.
You're absolutely right. So thank you very much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. And I think this is where we draw the conference to a close. Thank you everybody for attending. Thank you so much to our absolutely amazing speakers. They give their time so generously, completely free, and they enable us all to learn so much. So thank you very much indeed. So I just wanted to leave everyone on a small moment of hope. There have been a lot of questions about DCCR. I just wanted to remind everyone that we are working with Celino. We have a research working group amongst our trustees, and we are all committed to the regulatory process. It's a very long process, but it's one that we will give everything that it's necessary to give to. And let's hope that it brings a different future for everyone here. So thank you very much for everyone attending. We are sincerely hoping that next year we will be face to face. We will be able to bring our PWS family back together again. And my goodness, will that be a reason for a great party? Thank you very much indeed, and good night.